Hello everyone, my name is Caleb. Welcome to my house. This is the Charles S. Brown house. It was built in 1889. It is a Second Empire beauty. A very late one at that though, because the Second Empire style kind of sputtered off there towards the late 1890s. So let me go ahead and give you guys a tour of the inside. The original entryway, except for the two front doors, which are not original, but everything here, all the woodwork here, including the front door itself, is all original. This is the entryway, so this is what guests would have been greeted to when you would come and visit Mr. Brown for business meetings or, you know, any appropriate thing. This is the only original fixture in the house. It's half gas and half electric, so the upturned ones are gas, they still have the jets on them, and the downturned ones are the electric. Transitional light picture because electric was the new kid on the block, but it really wasn't established yet. But the gas was old and reliable, so you needed both. You know, better to have both, so you're not in the dark all the time. So, so from here, the original guest would have come into the front parlor or the formal parlor. So we have a few really unique features here. My favorite being the shutters. So these are the original shutters, and how they survived so long I'm kind of impressed with. But they actually fold in to the window frames here and become paneling on the side, which I think is really cool and something I've not seen in another house. So it's one little cool little feature that exists only here, I think. The original medallions are here. All the plasterwork in this room is original. But the house did come with a few missing components. And those missing components would be my two fireplace mantles, the fretwork over the fabulous pocket doors, and my newel post to the stairwell. But with my YouTube channel, everything that's happened, I was able to get some of my original tiles back. So these are the tiles that actually would surround the fireplace here. So missing the wooden mantle part, but I got the tiles back, and yeah, that's a 1 in a million shot. So I'm glad to have those. I love those roses. I can hear Mrs. Brown saying, "Honey, we need the roses in the formal parlor." I don't know. So Mrs. Brown, Sarah, was a pump organist or an organist, and Mr. Brown actually went back to New Jersey because he moved here from New Jersey to start his business because he fell in love with her. And so since she was an organist, I feel it's a good idea, or was a good idea, to buy an organ versus a piano, which would have been common in a Victorian house. And I love this thing, and I think it's really fitting in the house because of its history. Now, of course, I can't play, but it makes some pretty fun noises. So, you know, a little more fun than a piano, in my opinion. So, into the more private parlor. I do believe these are the original floors, unlike the ones in the front parlor. These are all top nailed and beautifully inlaid. One of the best features of the house, in my opinion. This floor in this room is absolutely incredible. We have the exact same medallion on the ceiling. Most of the plasterwork again is here. But just like the front room, we are missing the mantle. This is not the original mantle. This is a replacement I have. If I do ever get interior photos of this place, this will be replaced by the actual mantle. We'll have it rebuilt. So fingers crossed I get photos. These are two of the pocket doors that still roll and work really nicely. They have a little push button so you can pull out the handle, pull and roll them. But they still roll super smooth. And go right back into the wall when you don't need them. Essentially, this is Victorian open concept. And coming out of the parlor this way, we get back into the stairwell, so seeing it from a different side. The parlors themselves are all in cherry, and the stairwell section is all in oak. So the pocket door is actually the ones that connect to the hallway. One side is cherry and one side is quarter sawn oak. So kind of cool that they put two woods on one door. So back this way, we come across the maid stair first here on the left. So it's a little bit narrow, kind of windy stair, or your servant stair. The beadboard actually on this wall goes all the way up and makes the banister for the top rail. And this is all this wall is. There's nothing else but beadboard. I know, like, I get a lot of comments and people telling me, oh, there's something behind that. I'm like, no, there is no such thing as behind. It is that. That's the only thing there. This is what I believe to be the butler's pantry. That was turned into a first floor bathroom, probably in the 1920s. The reason I say 20s is because the tile on the wall is a stuff called vitrolite. And vitrolite really kind of was favorable in the 20s and 30s and kind of went out of fashion. They actually no longer make it, so kind of rare. It will be getting replaced though, because I plan on taking things back to 1900, but I will be donating that to a guy here in St. Louis that specifically deals with just vitrolite. So it will get saved. Nothing in this house I want thrown away. So if I can't use it, I want somebody else to be able to find a use for it. There's stained glass here that goes into what I believe was the butler's pantry again, but now goes into that bathroom. Kind of a cool little feature. I don't know that it would have ever let much light in, but it does let a little bit, just a hint. So in this room here, this would have been the kitchen. And of course, with most houses, the kitchens always get replaced and modernized consistently. This one was no different. It was probably taken, probably about the 60s look, maybe 70s look in here, most of which we've taken out. It was a real wreck anyway, so it needed to come. I believe this was the original door to the butler's pantry. I don't believe that door on the other side exists, the current bathroom. You can see some of the original lead pipe plumbing, which is kind of interesting, although maybe that's not quite original. But you can see what the original wall here did look like. It was a beadboard wainscoting, and had the little top cap rail. This, I believe, is always where the sink sat. But because I have evidence and clues like this, that means I can put it back to the correct way. My kitchen will be ever so slightly modernized because I don't want to cook with coal or wood, and I don't want to, cool my food with ice blocks. So I'm going to use 1920s appliances, 1930s appliances, because that's the first time gas was really kind of standard. It would hold the correct temperature, and refrigerators would do the same. So those are the first eras I can get to that work for modern living. So this would have been the door the maid or the servant or the cook would have taken into the dining room. It actually does flip back and forth. It's double hinged. And the plates here, I think, are really cool. They're heavily stylized and not terribly legible, but I've had a few people tell me that this actually says hello and goodbye in Arabic. There's one on either side. Now the dining room is another one of those super, plush, let's say, rooms. We have the only room that has wainscoting all the way around it. All the panels in here are what's called curly pine, which is kind of a knotty looking or burled wood. It's absolutely gorgeous. Has really holographic qualities to it. And every single one of these panels, and in fact all the doors in the house are made of that. We have the built-in china cabinet here, which actually still has the original switch, and the electrical still works in that. It's really cool. I'm really super glad to have it. The mantle here, out of all the existing fireplaces we have, is the nicest mantle in the house. It's heavily carved, I believe granite, and the original tiles are all still here. You have to excuse my newspaper that's been hanging out there. I just recently opened the firebox for the first time after having figured out how to get the summer cover off, and it is a beauty, but needs a little bit of work, of course. It's settled a little funny, and so I'll have to probably take it apart, put it back all together, but we'll get it cleaned up, and it's just amazing that it's still here. So, coming out the way back to the hallway, you can see some of the doors I've stripped. This is a pretty good example here of that curly pine and the really amazing burl pattern in it. Once you hit it with a shellac or a top coat or a varnish, the holographic nature of this really pops. It's a grain that really moves. So as you move, it moves as well. It's I don't know. It's hard to explain, but really, really beautiful. This here's the side door. Nothing too terribly fancy about it, other than it gives you access to the side. As you'll see throughout the house still does have its radiators mostly intact, and the boiler is from 2008 and still works, and is how I currently heat the house. It's a wonderful system, especially with plaster, because the plaster holds the heat and allows the building to warm and stay warm for a while. So it takes about 5 days to heat up the house, but after you turn off the boiler, it stays warm for about 5 days as well. So it's pretty cool. So heading back down the hallway, we're going to ignore the maid stairwell because you guys are guests and I should take you up the grand staircase, of course. So we're going to head up to the second floor through the grand staircase. Again, missing the newel post, which is a bummer, but the rest of the staircase is here. The only other thing we're missing to the staircase is one spindle right here, which we'll have to have recreated. Everything else is perfectly intact about this. Just like any old staircase, it does make a bit of noise, but considering its age, it's actually pretty well intact. Up at the top of the stairs here, we have what I believe to be the original wallpaper in this hallway area. It's something I do want recreated because I think it's absolutely stunning. I'm hoping to peel a bit more of that paint off or maybe steam it off and see if I can get more of it exposed so I can get the full pattern out of it. But I think that's absolutely gorgeous and works with the very East-like aesthetic that the house has. So coming down a little bit further down the hall here, we have the original panel box. So this actually predates fuses, or fuses would be just wires that would burn. Somebody's jumped these with thicker gauge wires, and that's why we have some melting here, but not to worry because it is mounted on slate. Now this isn't something I'll be using again in the house, but it's something that'll definitely stay because it tells a story of early power in houses. And this would be a very early example of electrical in houses. So. This is what I believe would have been the female master bedroom, or although I don't know if they used the term master bedroom back then, but I believe this would have been Sarah's room. The reason I say that is because it's a little bit bigger, and you probably should let your wife have the bigger room. It has more feminine, I would say, qualities to it, and like the tile and some of the plaster work in here. Plus, ladies of the era would have had to get ready, and that would have been quite a fiasco, quite a workout, let's say, to get ready in the Victorian era, especially as a woman. So I imagine, give her a little extra room, the maid can get in here and help her get ready for her day. And the tile in the fireplace here, also original as well. And I really, really do love the green and the little blue and white flowers here. I think they're absolutely incredible. Good color scheme. They had good taste. So this here actually is the original bathtub to the house. The house was only built with one bathroom, but still even in 1889 to have a bathroom at all was still something pretty incredible. However, I am going to be replacing it because somebody has re-enameled it a few times over. So I got this one here, which I know is from 1897, so it's a little bit late, but it has the oak rimmed tub, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's close enough to the era to be pretty much perfect for the bathroom when we get it back together. Again, more of the original radiators. Move this light here. So I believe this to be Mr. Brown's room, so this is the second master bedroom. It is a fair amount smaller. But it has more masculine, more gothic traits, I believe, in the fireplace. The fireplace where the tile would be is actually just one slab of granite itself. And this window here is actually what's called a Jefferson window. It actually goes all the way to the floor and opens up, and there would have been a smoking balcony out there. So, I imagine men of the Victorian era smoked a lot more. And so I imagine this would make more sense as his bedroom. So kind of skirting around the hallway here, we're heading back into what would have been the maid's area. So this is the top of the maid's stairwell, and as I said, the beadboard that you saw downstairs below actually comes up and makes this wall here that the banister sits on. So that's how that's all formed. This is something I actually have taken all the paint off of and re-shellacked and waxed, and it has come out beautifully. I wish we had touch-o-vision because the way it feels is just amazing. The wax is it's a treat for the tips, let's say. And this is also another room where I've done a lot of plaster work. I've been learning the art of plastering, and there's definitely a learning curve for sure, but it's something I've had a lot of fun learning. It's cool to know how people did it back in the day. Oh yeah, I guess all the transom windows also all work. There's a few of them that are missing their hardware, but most of them are really smooth. This here is the original bathroom, so you would have had that bathtub sitting right here, toilet here, and sink here. Now, other than the bathtub, that's the only original feature that was in here, or fixture that was in here. So we'll be replacing those with marble sinks and things like that. But you can see the original beadboard that again was around this room as well. That's what these boards here are for, is to mount the beadboard. So that will be going back to that as well. So slowly getting there with all the different elements that need to be done. Closet, nothing too crazy there except for my internet. In this room, I believe would have been the nursery. I would be turning it into my library, but it's the only room in the house that doesn't have a closet that you could consider a bedroom. But this is going to be my library study area. This room I've done quite an extensive amount of work to. It's also the room I do a lot of work in. But you can see I've got one of the walls back together. This was all down to brick here, and so I've been slowly getting it back together. Of course, I had a few failures with my plaster because I was trying to do it in like 100 degree heat, and plaster doesn't work when it's so hot out. And then the original mantle here actually was painted over, but you can see some of the original Eastlake details in there. I am going to start using a much slower method of stripping it with a heat gun, just to make for sure that I can get that pattern back so I can repaint the beautiful detail of that mantle. So back out of the library, we can have actually one really good example of the curly pine here. You can kind of see some of the movement in the grain here, which is really nice. It's not 100% finished, but I think it's a really beautiful example of that. That was the door actually to the bathroom on the first floor, the one with the vitrolite in it, the 1924. So this here is the maid's room, and where I believe she would have stayed. I actually know her name, or at least the original maid. Her name was Kitty Hemminghouse, and she was very close in age, actually, I think 2 years older than the Browns' daughter, which was their eldest child. And this is actually one of the rooms that I got the original windows put back in, or not the original, the new windows that are made on antique equipment, including some Holland Brown equipment, which is pretty cool. That's how these work. All the old systems, all the old noises when windows open and close. They're actually mahogany, and they're really nice, and they work rather well. So coming back out of the maid's room, you can see there's two doors here. One leads to Mr. Brown's room, and one leads back to the hallway. Excuse my buckets. And so back into the stairwell, just the way we came up from the first floor. This is how you get to the third floor. Now, half of the house is 2 stories and half of the house is 3 stories. The dividing line actually is the wall that goes between the maid's area and the Mr. Brown's room. Now this is one area that is a little less ornate than some of the other areas, except for like the maid's areas. So you have lesser trim. You just have the simple rosettes. There's no middle block or anything like that. But still nonetheless beautiful. Things are a little shorter up here, but I still think the ceiling height is something around 10 and a half feet. So still rather large, grand rooms. These are rooms that I will be cutting up a bit more because this is going to be my personal space. So I'll be making this area here into a bathroom and putting the only wall that's changing in the entire house right here. So I can have a small kitchen up here, small, laundry room, things like that. And I do plan on having a balcony on the back out here at some point. Of course, this is something that won't be taking place very early because there's a lot of work to do. But the view outside is absolutely gorgeous. You have the two water towers out there that you can see. One is the Corinthian column, which I believe is the largest column in the world. And really happy that we still have that here in the city. Supposedly there are 3 water towers like that in St. Louis. One is on South Grand, 2 are up here, and there are 7 in the entire United States. So it's really amazing that I get to see 2 of them from my window. So that's pretty cool. Again, all the doors, curly pine. Of course, somebody has painted these ones in the past, but that's not a worry. I've done tons of paint stripping so far. Luckily, 80% of the house came unpainted, so that's good for me because paint stripping isn't terribly fun. So this was going to be my bedroom here. As you can see, the brick stops here, and we enter into the actual mansard roof portion of the house. So you can see with the walls open, it's got that slanted bit. That's the actual mansard itself. So these windows are the large dormer and the tower that look out. And yes, everything's a bit unkempt up here and a bit beat up, but it just makes it for more of a challenge, and I like a good challenge, so this house is definitely that, and with its historical value and everything, I think it's absolutely brilliant to find one even in this kind of conditions. So we do have an amazing view of the arch, which is nice for being here in St. Louis, to be able to see something like that. Among with some other things, you can see Grand Center and some of the Art Deco buildings over there, which are also a nice, very welcome sight to have. Because this would have been a lesser area, this is kind of where they use a lot of storage. So this is actually the original trunk room here. So, when you're not on vacation, you have all your trunks stored here. They also have this cedar-lined closet, so your moths wouldn't need all your clothes or your furs, and with a bunch of built-ins as well, which is really nice. So I imagine you'd have your winter coats up here in the summer, and the stuff you're not using on the daily up here. Still, really nice little feature. It's quite enjoyable. So, for the next part of the house, we have to go all the way back down to the first floor and back to the kitchen, because that is the access to the basement. And there's a cool little feature in the basement that I don't know if any house has. Unless, of course, you have a veterinarian living in your house. Then maybe you have something like this. This time we're actually going to bypass the grand staircase and go down the main stairs for simplicity. So see, they're a bit narrow, a bit windy, but quite usable. I know a lot of people have said to me that that the stairs would be uneven in the maids' quarters and stuff like that, but that's not the case. Maybe they respected their staff a little bit more. So coming out through the maid stairs, we end up back here at the end of the hall, where the Art Deco-y 1920s bathroom is again with the picture light, and the kitchen. Now in the kitchen here, in the corner, is a stairwell that heads down. So we're going to go ahead and head down that. So for a basement, it actually is a very tall and light basement. I guess it's probably a little over 9 feet tall, something like that. I have to get on my tippy toes to touch the ceiling, if you can believe it, in a basement. For reference, I'm 5'10". This may have been part of the original kitchen here. For us, it's going to end up being the laundry room. Just the easiest place to put it because we're below the kitchen and the water access is very easy to get to right here. Now this is actually one of the cooler features of the home. The second owner of the home was a guy named Dr. Joseph Yeneman. he was a veterinarian, and so this is actually where he ran his practice. So the tile floor in here isn't original to the house, but it was added probably sometime in the teens or 20s. And this is actually where he ran his practice. Now these walls, these padding, this foam on the walls isn't all original either. But what I've heard from people and what I think to be the truth is that these are acoustic tiles that would have kept the dogs and the cats from being so very loud down here. So that's why this entire room is covered in this. These are my two new 400 amp power service. The old one was rusty because this wall was getting a lot of water into it. And so it's good to now have at least some stable power. I'm sure you notice all the power cords in the house. That's all of the power I have in the house. So it's good to be able to have something that's at least stable, because before it was scary and fire risk was certainly there. You can see probably where he stored a lot of the medicines and stuff here in these little closets. So really cool little features. Again, they put the foam on them. I'll have to work on getting that off. Again, more shelves here. This actually here was a little bathroom, and it will be again. We were going to add a shower to this place, so that would add the grand total of bathrooms to 4 in the house as opposed to the 1 original, which is an upgrade, but we're hiding them in places that are more inconspicuous or areas that are a little bit lesser. That way we can keep the entire original design of the house intact. So we're changing as very little as possible. Also, this little light switch is really neat. I don't know why I like it, but it makes a really nice, satisfying little ding at the end of each plate. This is the boiler here, and all the pipes we have above us are the radiator pipes. So they actually still go to the radiators, still feed them. I am missing a few radiators, but the pipes are still there. So as soon as I find one of the appropriate style and size, we'll be replacing those. And this is actually from 2008, so it's not terribly old. Over this way is probably the original coal chute area, which I believe to be through this door over here. And do bear with me, it is very dark down here. But right behind this door in this corner is the new water service, because with an old house like this, you will come into things that end up being too old to use. In my case, the original service pipes were in here and they were lead. So that's basically everything here on the interior of the house. I can show you guys around. We'll take that side door out, and I can show you what some of the new windows look like from the outside, because they do add definitely, I don't know, a bit of clarity to the design of the house. So back out here on the outside, we've walked around back to the front. And you can see I've started doing some paint stripping here, because when you paint stone with latex, it tends to spall and disintegrate the stone. So don't do that. You need some paint that will breathe. This is the first bay. There are 3 bays on the home. This allows you to get more light from different angles into the house. And it's also just a really cool architectural feature. It looks really good. You can see how beat up a lot of these windows are. These ones are actually new aluminum windows here on the first floor, and they need to be completely redone. But luckily they kept most of the original frame in there, so when I put my new sashes in, it should match up quite well. Now as we come around here to the back of the house, this is the side door. And actually sitting here on the side of the house is really cool, is my Hall & Brown table saw. So Hall & Brown is the company that Mr. Brown, of course, started, along with his business partner, Hall. His house was right here in this empty lot next to us. And it was actually identical to mine. So they were, you know, 2 business partners with identical houses. And this was their company here, which is on my hoodie. So, but this is a Hall & Brown table saw. The table part of the saw is actually in my garage, which doesn't actually open right now. I have a broken garage door, so. And down this side here, as we come around, you can see there's these stairs down here. These were actually added probably in the 20s and 30s. This door actually leads to the veterinarian's clinic. So if you were a customer here, you would come down with your sick dog or cat, and Dr. Gittiman would fix them right up. So now as we come back around to the back of the house, you'll see the last bay. This is the one with the dining room and the library slash nursery. And you can see the windows have two very different drastic colors on them. That's because the top windows are the new sashes, and I've cleaned up the frames and wood filled and completed those, and they add a whole new look to the house. It gives the old girl some really pretty new shiny eyes, and I absolutely love the way they've turned out so far. So the garage, I'm not exactly sure of its age. It didn't come with the building permits for the original building, unlike Mr. Hall's house that did have a permit for the garage. So I don't think it's exactly original to the house. Maybe in the teens or so is when this was built, maybe a little earlier. It does have a kind of an interesting ceiling in it. It actually has beadboard on the ceiling. And I am hiding some goodies in here, like my original stove, or not the original stove, but a 1920s quick meal stove. I have some iron fencing for the front and some things like that. Also some other various like 60s, 70s appliances. So if anybody needs a refrigerator with a Lazy Susan inside, let me know, I got one. So as it stands right now, the garage is basically impenetrable. The garage door here has broken. So I'd love to show you all the interior of it, but it just isn't possible at the moment. Now when I bought the place, the guy had left a hearse in here, but he has since come back for it. So Steve, if you're watching, I'm glad you got your hearse back, buddy. So out here, there's actually a bunch of ornamental brick and stone kind of scattered all around, some terracotta, some not. But there's a lot of this stuff kind of all around. And Steve, the guy who formerly owned my... Oh, a little bit of mortar came off with that one. The guy that formerly owned my house just had a knack for collecting all sorts of things. And so these are just some of the remnants left behind. I do actually have a passion for collecting old brick, especially ornamental ones. So it's really nice to have these here. I think when I get the house a bit more together, I'm gonna do something really nice outside, maybe a barbecue pit or a fire pit area where I use a lot of this ornamental stone and something like that. Or I don't know, I have plans. All right guys, so that's pretty much the end of the tour. That's how my beautiful home looks on the inside now after about a year of restoration. Continue if you guys want to follow this journey. I do have a little YouTube channel. Its name is The Second Empire Strikes Back, where I post weekly uploads of all the various things that happen here in the house on a weekly basis. So go check that out, and thank you so much for joining me. So thank you. Bye-bye.